11 straight games. 11 straight losses for the Chicago Bulls, and it's not stopping anytime soon. But Matas Buzelis says the Chicago Bulls are not tanking. We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, is Billy Donovan really going to survive and make it to the next wave of the Chicago Bulls? Should he survive and make it to the next wave of the Chicago Bulls, whatever the Bulls have planned? And we'll talk about it all and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Eric Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. First off, we're going to start off with these comments from Matas Buzelis in regards to the Bulls tanking in. Again, Matas is saying the right things. I love Matas' mindset. We talked yesterday about how Matas Buzelis still wants to win, and he's talking about the things that he wants to do to help this team win, and it's not happening. But in regards to ask about tanking, from The Athletic, he said this. I don't really like that word, and people may think that we're tanking, but I'm going out and trying to win every night. All these guys are too. I'm sorry. I just want to win games, and that's what everything is all about. And we've seen this from him before, right? Like, here's the thing. Players don't tank. Organizations tank. And I fully believe that. There are not players out there that are trying purposely to lose games so they can draft a player to possibly replace them. They're just not doing that, right? That's not what the players are doing, but that's where the Bulls have gotten to the place of, between holding players out for injuries, the wonky roster construction that we were left with after the trade deadline. Organizations prioritize tanking. Players usually do not. And that's what we're seeing here for the Chicago Bulls, and I'm sure it's frustrated, right? Buzelis goes on to say this. When you trade half the team and you bring in new guys, it's tough. It's no excuse, though. We got to come in and figure it out. And I'm going to say it again. I know we're capable of doing that. Here's the thing. The Chicago Bulls just played their last game of the month. This is the last game. And they finished the month of February with 0 wins. 0 wins in the month of February. This was a team that was one game above 500. Keep in mind, just a month ago. And now you see how things have gone for this team. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating for a lot of Bulls fans. It's frustrating for a lot of people. The Bulls fans don't want to see this team lose to this level, but the Bulls fans do want to see the team improve. And and people look at you progress through losing. And that's basically what's happening here for the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls' last win was January 31st. January 31st was the last time we won a game. And at that point, we were one game below 500. One game below 500. That's it. We were 23-22 January 24th, a little over a month ago. And that is where we sit right now. We sit now at 24-36. That's how rough the month of February has been for the Chicago Bulls. When the Bulls decide to tank, oh Lord, are they doing it big time? So that's just the reality of where the situation is for the Chicago Bulls. Now, you have to look at this and say this. What's next? What comes next for this team? In a realistic fashion, what is next for the Chicago Bulls? And it's not this season. I said it before, and I said it then. Like this, I said it. Listen, this losing streak is probably going to go to 14 games, and I believe that still. You got 3 more losses probably coming up with Milwaukee, OKC, and Phoenix. All those games are probably going to be losses. All of them. You may win against Sacramento. You may not even win that game. And we talked about the important, like what the Bulls are gaining by their record getting worse, right? Like the percentages that they're going to be gaining in the lottery is the thing. I think the lowest they can get, or the best. How do you even word that? They could get up to, they realistically can catch and have the 7th worst record in the league. That's realistically right now. They're 1.5 games ahead, back, however you want to look at it, of the Memphis Grizzlies, and they're two games back of the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas Mavericks have lost 1. The Memphis Grizzlies lost 3, but that's where the Bulls are. They've lost 11 in a row. That's the most realistic place that they're going to go. But this, I'm sure this is frustrating for the, and then the question that's left with this one is, what is this really doing to the psyche of players? And how is this going to be affecting the guys that we do want to stay here into next offseason? Are they going to go out and attack it and be more aggressive because they never going to want to feel this again? I hope so. If Matas Buzelis is the player that he says that he wants to be, I hope that Matas takes this and takes what's happening this season and says to himself, I never want to have to tank again, so I'm going to go out here and ball out. I'm going to be more of a reason why we can win this games and why this franchise hopefully looks at it and says we can't afford to tank any more seasons. We got a guy like Matas Buzelis and hopefully also the draft pick that we draft this year. But a lot of that is going to fall down to Matas as well. I hope that you internalize this the right way. That's all I can say for that for Matas Buzelis. I hope that it's internalized in a way to where Matas looks at this and he uses this to push him to want to be even better. Now, shout out to Matas, who had another 20-point game last night against the Portland Trail Blazers. Only 6 of 16 from the field, though. 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block. And through the month of February, much as we talk about the Bulls struggling, he's averaging 16.5 points, 45% shooting from the field, 35% shooting from 3, 5.5 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 2 blocks per game, and almost a steal per game as well. Like solid stats from Matas Buzelis, right? Solid. In the era where you're losing, he's had 2 games where he scored single digits the entire month of February. Really solid for him there. But that's just my only concern with tanking. Now, because I don't see this as a multi-year tank by the Chicago Bulls, I do feel like that, hopefully this doesn't completely wear down the psyche of players, right? I worry more about organizations that tank for 2, 3, 4 years, right? What does that do when it's time for winning for players that have basically been programmed to be in losing situations? So hopefully it's not that. And because it is probably only going to be a one-season tank, that Matas Buzelis, Josh Giddey, I know Noah Essengate didn't play this year, but these guys take this and are like, listen, it's on us. Like we're a young squad. It's on us. Let's go out here and ball out all next season. Let's go out here and attack the offseason. Like I want to see. We knew Matas Buzelis stayed at the Advocate Center basically all last year. Him and Ayo Dosunmu. I want to see a Matas Buzelis that is in the lab, working on your dribbles, going higher dribble too much if you need to do that. Go out there and attack. I want to see a Matas Buzelis that we see all over the place, working with specialists around the league as well as our own development team to use this to jumpstart. Matas Buzelis is not happy with tanking. That's what I take from this quote. And I love that from Matas Buzelis because he should not be. There should not be a single player. Organization can be happy. Fans can be happy what that means for the draft pick. But there should not be a single player that looks at this and says, I'm content with us losing at the rate that we did last season. Fuck no. Because then I got to question your psyche. Go out there and play well. But with that said, I do want to talk about something that is absolutely standing out with the Chicago Bulls team as far as the play on the court. And I haven't been doing a lot of X's and O's breakdown since the trade deadline because of the state that this team is in. And I just don't think that this team is playing any type of semblance of actual organized basketball very well. I don't know if we've adapted. I know we haven't. We have not adapted the scheme at all to the players that we have acquired because Billy Donovan doesn't make middle of seasons adjustments like that. And then on top of that, it's not the most natural fit. And then it's even hard to still get your footing under you because those guys have also been injured, right? Like it's just been all over the place. But as it stands right now, right, you look at something that's definitely hurting the Bulls right now, and that is the turnover problem. The Chicago Bulls since the All-Star break, are turning the ball over at almost 21 times per game. That's a huge alarm there. Now, I think that what points to that is you have a team that's unfamiliar with each other. You didn't have an actual point guard in there for a long part of time. And now that we've gotten our point guards back in Trey Jones and Josh Giddey, clearly see Josh Giddey isn't himself. Trey Jones is basically being himself for the most part when he does play, right? But you look at it, the Bulls are turning the ball over at way too high of a margin right now. And if you keep turning that over in that way, that goes to the sloppy offense. This goes to what makes this product so hard to watch, even with tanking, right? When you look at prior to the midseason and the trade deadline, the Chicago Bulls were 16th in the league, only averaging 14.5 turnovers per game, which is still not great, right? That puts you a little bit lower than halfway through the league, right? But you look at that, they were only 0.3 turnovers away from being the 10th place team as far as turnovers. So there you go with that one, right? Like the Bulls weren't necessarily that bad off with turnovers. But now, with the Bulls up-tempo style, with the players that aren't familiar with each other, not having point guards as they're playing really well right now, the Bulls are playing really bad right now. We are 5th in pace in the NBA since the All-Star break and 13th in turnover percentage. And I guess that's the 13th in turnover percentage isn't necessarily terrible either, but it's just not good. It's just not good. We need to be better in that than what we are. And if the Bulls keep these level of turnovers up, again, I look at everything like you still, even if you're going to lose games, you still want to, if you're looking to still, and that's why I question if we're even trying to develop the rest of the way this season. Like at this point, sit everybody. because I don't know if anybody's gaining anything right now. Now, I do think also you have at least two players on this team. At least four players on this team that are averaging 2 turnovers or more. Josh Giddey's averaging 4 turnovers per game since the All-Star break. Again, highlighting the fact that he has not been himself since returning either. And that's like the Bulls right now, like you could say it's part of the tank or whatever, but like I said, because players don't take, organizations do, you're seeing that this Bulls team's just playing sloppy basketball. And that is what, even throughout some of the times where the Bulls do look solid, and there have been some solid halves, there's definitely been solid quarters. There have been some times where the Bulls actually looked, again, like a scrappy team that was scrapping, right? But then you look at, it's those things that shoot yourself in the foot. So while, like, since the All-Star break, things haven't been great for the Bulls statistically and stuff like that, and we know that we haven't won a single game in the month of February, those turnovers, you got to get that down. And I would really like to see Billy Donovan still try to coach that. And, you know, again, maybe I'm just hopeful for too much. Again, this isn't about winning or losing. This is just about playing basketball the right way. And that's been something that's really been hurting this team, in what we've tried to do. When you look at the last 10 games for the Chicago Bulls, for example, our true shooting percentage is 24th in the NBA. Our offensive rating is 29th. Our defensive rating, our net rating is 30th. Our defensive rating is 29th as well. Effective field goal shooting percentage is 22nd. We're not doing anything really well right now. Where we're 4th in the league in 3-point rate. Like what the fuck is that? Right? And that goes to show again, like it goes to one of my biggest things is why is Billy Donovan going to get another chance with another new roster? And, we'll get into that. That's how we're going to end this show. But I just want to say this. In regards to the tanking thing with the Bulls, it's hard. But it may be what's best for the team. This may be what it's like taking your medicine, so to say, as Bulls fans right now. And that's just the reality of it. And you're going to have to do that the way that you have to do it. And that's really all the Bulls that they're going to have to, Bulls and Bulls fans are going to have to just deal with this the way that they can. And it's clear what the goal is. It's clear what the focus is here. And so from a standpoint of somebody like me, right, who actually likes talking about the X's and O's of basketball, the on the court part of basketball, it's a little bit more difficult right now to do that because even in what you're trying to break down, it's like, I could break down possessions. I could break down the fact that Matas actually, when he goes to the mid-range, is pretty damn good. But, and I would like to see his shot diet change a little bit. I could talk about the scheme and how our offense is stagnant because we run so much out on the perimeter. We don't really, penetrate at all. Shout out to her, Giggity. So, you have those things. But at this point, it's like, what's the point of breaking down the X's and O's? Because we all know a lot of these players aren't going to be back on the team. We're not trying to play optimal basketball right now. So even that's going to hopefully change going into next year. And the roster is going to be so different than, we're really going to have to talk about a completely different way to scheme and how we're going to run our offensive schemes, hopefully with some of the changes that we make. And that just goes to show that this thing right now, everybody's going through it. Like I said, everybody's going through it differently. And, we could talk about the Bulls if they were able to get Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, AJ DeBonsa, like we could talk Caleb Wilson. Like, of course, everybody wants one of those top 4 guys. Everybody wants one of those top 4 guys. And if the Bulls are able to get lucky and move into some lottery luck and get that pick, great. Great if they're able to do that. Amazing. Hats off to you. Amazing to be able to do that. But I still think you have to look at it this way, is that we still have to trust AK to get the right guy. And, I'm somebody who I'm a lot more realistic about things personally. Like, I would not be surprised if one of those guys at the top 4 that a lot of people are like, you can't miss with these. One of those guys is probably going to be a miss. One of those guys is probably not going to live up to that. It doesn't mean that they're going to be a bad NBA player, but I as far as living up to what the pressure that some people are putting on those is you got 4 franchise altering guys. I guarantee you one of those guys is probably going to be a disappointment. And I just hope that the Bulls, if they were to get in the top 4, they're not the team that picks the one guy that ends up being a disappointment. That's just all I can hope for. That is where I'm at right now. Now, most mocks also have us drafting Keaton Wagler right now. If we end up staying at number 9, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad pick either. I don't think that that's a bad pick when you look at it. I think that that's perfectly fine. If you end up getting that, you get your backcourt mate next to Josh Giddey. You can keep then Noah and Matas and what you plan on doing with those. Jalen Smith hopefully can stay at the 4 as well. You go out there and find your 5. I'm not mad at that. But I just hope that AK doesn't try to get too cute here. And that's just really what I come back down to. Don't try to get too cute with this draft pick. Look at the floor. Of course, look at the ceiling. but don't try to get cute. And I don't know if I all the way trust Arturas Karnisovas to not try to do some Arturas Karnisovas things. Now, my hope, of course, is that, we also get the Portland pick. And then AK can do his high ceiling thing with the Portland pick, get the better talent there with your own pick. That's what I hope can happen. But we'll see. Of course, we did our part in helping Portland, get another win. They are now, I think, 2.5 games back of that 8 seed in the Western Conference. The Golden State Warriors also won their last game. So we'll see. We need them to start losing a little bit more. But overall, that's what it looks like, how things are shaping up for this team. But let me get to the last topic that I want to talk about today. And that's Billy Donovan. Is Billy Donovan going to stay with the Chicago Bulls but because of the team's pivot? And it's of two minds for this, right? If I had confidence that AK was going to do a multi-year tank, I would say probably no way that Billy Donovan stays. We know that he's left a situation similar to that before, even though he's since come out and was like, it wasn't necessarily me against rebuilding or whatever else, but the fact of the matter is he left it, right? Now, because I personally believe that AK is going to try to have this team right back to competitive this upcoming season in the 2026-27 season, I do see a world in which Billy Donovan does want to stay. And I think either way, the bigger conversation, of course, is that the Bulls are, like, if Billy leaves, it's going to come from Billy's own volition. I don't think AK is going to fire Billy Donovan. Now, I have my problems with that, of course, and I have my doubts with that, of course, right? But I think when it comes down to, Billy is in a very similar situation to what he was with the OKC Thunder. Now, it ends up, in hindsight, and maybe Billy has learned from this, in hindsight, had Billy just stuck it out, it would have been two years before you had a team that eventually became one of the best teams in the NBA. Now, they were steady progressing at that point until they became an NBA champion, but it was like 2 years before the team was like a perennial playoff team, right? And so, yeah, Billy Donovan built a surprise playoff team with Chris Paul, Shea, Dennis Schroeder, right? Like, he did that with those players, and that was great to see. But then the Thunder wanted to take a calculated step backward to continue building around Shea and to add more young talent around that. And that's where Billy Donovan ended up leaving. That is very similar to what the Bulls are doing now, taking a calculated step back so that they can add the talent that they need and then move forward, right? So, of course, the plan initially for AK was he led a aggressive roster overhaul that ended up giving you a team that was actually a playoff team and looked pretty good before Lonzo Ball went down with injury. Now, the question becomes about, is this going to be what the Bulls do again, right? And does Billy Donovan want to stay on for that? And that's the thing that we don't know, right? We do know this, is that Billy Donovan hasn't been the best about using rookies. Noah Essegay wasn't in the rotation, and that was kind of expected. Matas wasn't really in the rotation at the beginning of his rookie year either. Dalen and Julian were always kind of raw. And then you look at Ayo Dosunmu, who was the one guy that was in the rotation from the first game of his rookie season. He just was. And it was more you looked at as defense then his role and his trust grew as the season went on. But that's the reality of it, right? Now, Casey Johnson talked a little bit about Billy Donovan, and on the fast break there, he said this: Billy Donovan is as focused on this new challenge as anyone in the organization. But at the end of the season, he's going to sit down, exhale, debrief with ownership, debrief with management, and about the direction of the franchise. Now, this is really big words from Casey, right? Because Casey Johnson is basically saying, hey, he's locked in right now because that's his job. He's doing his job. He's going out there. He's trying to, coach these players. I would say that he's even locked in when you look at the rotations, is sitting certain guys locked into making sure we do what the front office wants to do, and that's increase our draft odds. Billy's locked in for that. He's doing that, right? He's actively doing that and being an active member, a part of that. He's helping with that. But sitting down after the season, like we all know, sometimes in stepping away, that's where the clarity comes from, right? And so Billy Donovan may very well sit back and look at this team and having that talk with front office and say, all right, what's the plan? What are we doing this offseason? And the front office, if he listens to the front office's plan, he's like, man, I hear you, but I don't know if I believe in that, right? Like, that could lead to where something Billy, maybe he changes his mind, right? Now, he did say this. Casey Johnson went on to say this. That's not to guarantee that he's going to be here the next 3, 4, 5 years, but it is to say that the myth about him not wanting to be part of a rebuilding project or rebuilding situation is a little overstated. So if it's a little overstated, what does that mean, right? And what does that then look like for Billy Donovan and the Chicago Bulls? I have no doubt that AK and the Reinsdorfs want Billy Donovan to stay. But does Billy Donovan look at this situation? Does he look at some other situations around the league and figure, hey, I can actually be closer to it? Like, I love these guys. Thank you for the opportunity. I don't know that, right? Like I said, John Paxson is still on Chicago Bulls payroll. Doug Collins was still on the Chicago Bulls payroll up until 2 seasons ago. Like, when you tend to be a Reinsdorf guy, you tend to stand away for a while, right? But when you look at Sam Presti and the words that he had after Billy Donovan's departure, he said this: "We had planned to sit down at the end of the season to discuss the best way to move forward for both of us. After those discussions, it became apparent that we couldn't provide him the information on the future direction of the team over the next several seasons to give him the level of clarity that he understandably desires at this stage of his career." Could those same things happen for the Chicago Bulls? Could the same thing happen here in Chicago? I know a lot of Bulls fans, myself included, would not mind at all for Billy Donovan to not be the guy leading this next phase of the Chicago Bulls. And all I have to do with that is to go back to the episode that I did before. Billy Donovan would become the only coach in the major professional sports to have 4 straight losing seasons and to keep his job. I guess we'll see what the Bulls plan on doing with that one, because it makes it even more interesting on if the Bulls actually will. I mean, well, like I said, I don't think the Bulls would be the one to remove the relationship. It would be Billy Donovan. So we'll see what happens there. And like I said, Chris Quinn. If we're going to move on from Billy Donovan, I want Chris Quinn from the Miami Heat to be the Chicago Bulls' next head coach. But at the end of the day, Bulls Nation, Matas wants to compete. We all understand that as a player that wants to be competitive. The players are saying that they want to win, but the results are tanking. That's just the reality of it. If this is a full rebuild, it needs direction. If this is development, it needs structure. If this is just retooling for the future, it needs more clarity. And hopefully we get that over the course of this offseason. But I also want to ask you guys this one. Do you believe that Billy Donovan stays throughout this next phase? Or do you believe that the front office can execute the plan that's needed to actually have this team competing next season? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Make sure you guys like the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.